Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands, and welcome to SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Confessions Overseas, titled Drift. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves the track on Spotify. Now, I think this is actually their first release, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's their first song. They've worked as a music producer under other names, I think, but this is their first track under Confessions Overseas. So we're going to listen through this track from start to finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Lovely vocal chops in amongst that synth pads, eh? It's almost angelic, isn't it? It's very pretty. Nice oscillation there. It's a very subtle kind of groove being instantiated here. Oh, lovely vocal layering there. I like how we're getting a little bit more tense in here. I'm liking the panning of that bass as well there. Everything's really neatly polished. Sparkles, dude. Okay, the drums are catchy. They weren't a vibe I was expecting here, and I love the freneticism in their 16th note bit. There's also got a weird sort of smoothness in it that I think is helped out by the atmospheric pads and everything else. Those reverb chains are gorgeous, dude. We're gonna have more of the male vocals. Cool. There's like an unspoken sort of pattern you can find with you don't want to have too much of the same thing, but you also don't want to have it over, you don't want to have it understated, I suppose. What I mean by that is, like if there's too much space between a new element and the next time you repeat it, it can almost seem like it's a once-off and people forget about it for that moment. And then it may seem weird that we're coming back into it. Having it come in every 4 bars is a smart move. Sick. Yeah, it's nice to have more of the rapper come in here, talking about how trust was the issue. I think he's a bit wiser now, so I think maybe they've learned something over the time since then. Yeah, hook line there. Well, not necessarily the hook line. I know that Drift is the name of the song, but deep mistrust is the issue. It's nice and percussive, and it's a nice contrast to a lot of the smoother elements we've given the overall harmony. So good use of good use of the differences in the attacks and stuff here. It's almost like it's through composed because of how constant everything is. When you have that flow, that legato feel from the beginning and don't really have a pause or anything like that in between. Or like a massive, the drums came in, but it supported the main theme. It's an interesting way of approaching it, but I kind of like that long form development that Confessions Overseas is applying here. It's smart stuff, honestly. I'm impressed, I know they've done work before, that apparently they've been making music for a couple of years, but even then, a couple of years to be able to make stuff at this quality with the production and the panning and automation and everything like that, that's pretty good. Pretty good, man. Well done. Oh, of course, to be fair, I don't know if this is the man or if this is the woman singing you. I don't know who's who. There could be more than one person, Oh, that 808, that bass synth there is gorgeous, dude. Nice roundness to it. And that was it. That was it. Damn, they just flew by, didn't it? Spotify has been doing this thing recently where, like, and obviously we're not going to listen to Malachi today, but Spotify has been doing this thing recently where it will show an accurate length of the song, but when you pause it, it won't, for whatever reason, like, show the correct part of the song. So, like, I might pause it at 2 minutes, but it'll show that it's like 1 minute 30 or something like that. To me, because this is the conclusion, to me, this song represents someone who is maybe being a little bit, looking back on how things have gone in there. It's a bit of a misty, kind of like bittersweet situation. They're glad to have found like what the problem was, but they still drifted away as a result of the initial issue. And it's not melancholy. It's like there's beauty in the understanding and growth that comes from experiences like that, but it also seems as though there's like a sadness there that it had to occur that way. It's an interesting, mature take on it that I think, the lyrics were reasonably, well, quite simple, but you had as much of the story as you needed to really understand what was going on. And I think that those really almost sort of like, those pad-like vocals that came in with the smoothness there and the multiple female vocal layers there, and then we had the dude rapping in there to kind of take it home at the end. It's smart arrangement. I think if you did everything come at once, it wouldn't have been nearly as effective. So to have Confessions Overseas kind of have that lady side of things, maybe he was thinking about the lady at the time, and then that later on it's him talking about what his conclusion was about it. So you have the literal thought process, or the sequence of the thought processes involved with this being put through music, and it's really clever. So well done on that. The vocals came through clearly, whether or not, whether you were sort of doing the clean vocals, like I know there were effects chains on it, but like, I think it was a raw performance. It didn't need an auto-tune or anything like that. But, the effects chains in regards to reverb, delay, maybe some other bits as well, just that they emanated throughout the mix, and they were nice and bright. EQing was fantastic on them. Great vocal techniques, nice sort of breathy texture to those clean vocals. And then the rapping part was obviously a bit more percussive there, but it wasn't like affronting or anything like that. It wasn't in your face. It was more like somber, which I think matched the mood and the tone set by the parts earlier in the track. So I think that having that approached that way was a smart idea. And the rapping was nice and fluid and cohesive, like we'd obviously been practicing and polishing it up, and we knew how important it was to have a fantastic first impression. A lot of work was put into making those vocal parts count and keeping it nice and simple and easily digestible for people. And I think that Confessions Overseas nailed the vocals as well as the story for what it was, The structure of it, again, as far as I'm aware, was through composed. You didn't necessarily have a set chorus, verse, or anything like that. You had that musical motif instantiated at the beginning and slowly developed over time with the different string parts and everything, and then the drums coming in, and then the various vocal changes that occurred throughout. And then at the end, just without, really cool bass. I don't know. I like the sound of that bass synth. It was almost like boom, the kind of the mic dropped, or like it all clicked, and we figured it out in the end. And that was just that awakening that occurred by the way of that synth. I think was great. There was a lot of symbolism in this music, and again, I'm very happy with that. The structure, I don't think would have benefited from having that traditional contemporary verse, chorus, ABAB structure. Through composed is totally fine. As long as it's interesting throughout, I think that's all you need. Additional to that is, like the instrumental parts, like it was electronic music production, You had those drum samples in there with the bass parts and the synths and the pads and everything like that. A lot of coloration in the vocals alongside that. So everything worked together for a nice cohesive musical theme that was, again, developed as far as we went. There were changes in the energy, which I think were important, because I think if we just continued adding a layer like a pyramid or something like that in the DAW, it wouldn't necessarily have been helpful. I'm glad that we took away sometimes and brought back. I'm glad that we finished on that part with the synth. It was a nice way to end it. Again, minimalism can be very effective. You've just got to know when to stick it in there. Finally, the production, the recording, mixing, and mastering was sensational. I'll be honest with you. I think that Confessions Overseas are showing their merits in regards to their work in that post-production side of things. I think that if you can get your voice sorted, get some lessons to do rapping or singing, and I don't get me wrong, this isn't applying to Confessions Overseas. I think their vocals sounded great. But like, if you're someone who is wanting to sort of make it as a musician, I'd start with being a producer. just start with getting the hang of the post-production side of things. Because people are a lot less tolerant than they used to be of a not so great studio side of things. Like, it will just not seem as professional if it isn't ticking the boxes in that regard. No matter what you do, you know. If you make something truly abrasive sounding musically, like it has that awful tonality, if you're just playing like flat second chords all the time, if it's expertly produced, mixed and mastered, you know, people might not feel good after listening to it, but they'll nonetheless think it's professional because of the fact that it sounds like it was done properly in the studio side of things. That's just the world we live in nowadays, but that's fine. That's okay. And again, you know, EQing, stereo padding, effects change on different instruments, limiting compression, all of that stuff was done masterfully. Again, there was that nice contrast between the more straightforward sort of rapping vocals and the airy kind of floaty, clean vocals at the start that emanated throughout. Yeah, I'm really happy with Drift. I think that Confessions Overseas have got a good thing going, and I really hope they stick at it. But that's effectively my review, though, of Drift by Confessions Overseas. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show us some love via their various social medias and their Spotify page. Stay cool and stay safe, and please also remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as either hell more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands Out.